5 years. I'm Dr. Amrita, Department of Pulmonary Medicine, Narayana Hrudayalaya, Bangalore. In the occasion of World Pneumonia Day, that is on November 12th, I'm well honored to welcome two eminent speakers to enlighten you on this topic. Hereby welcoming Dr. Rangnath. He is Senior Consultant and Head of the Department of Pulmonary Medicine, Narayana Hrudayalaya, Bangalore. And Dr. Anil Sapare sir. He is Senior Consultant, Pediatric Pulmonology, Narayana Hrudayalaya, Bangalore. To start with, sir, what is pneumonia?
Hello viewers, and thank you for all this for this opportunity. So, to put it in simple words, pneumonia is nothing but the infection of the lungs. So, whenever you have an infection in the lungs, a syndrome complex will develop, which involves fever, cough, sometimes with expectoration, or it could be dry cough also. And in the X-ray, if you see a patch or what we call consolidation, this syndrome complex is what we call pneumonia.
And sir, what is the theme of this World Pneumonia Day?
So on this year, that's 12th of November 2021, the theme that is kept for World Pneumonia Day is Stop Pneumonia, Every Breath Counts. What it is emphasizing is that this is the time now we need to eradicate or stop pneumonia with effective vaccination, and every breath counts, implying that every life counts, and we should try to reduce the mortality significantly worldwide. That is the main theme of this particular year. Thank you.
And what is your take on it, sir, and about the burden of the disease now?
Yeah, actually, though it's a simple disease and eminently treatable, we have been having at least about 2 million deaths every year. Thanks to our COVID in 2020, another 2 million is added to the burden. So the huge mortality or the deaths secondary to this infection. And it's actually easily treatable, and if you kind of awareness is raised, we can decrease this by half. And from 2009, the World Pneumonia Day is being observed, keeping the enormity of the situation and the burden of the disease and its impact on the society. It has been observed to raise the awareness among the public.
Okay, sir. Who all are at risk to develop pneumonia?
Pneumonia can happen to anybody. However, the pneumonia, we have some kind of a risk groups where the chances of pneumonia is higher, like extremes of the age, less than 2 years, and people who are older than 65 years, people with comorbid conditions like diabetes when it is not well controlled, people who are smokers, people who have a pre-existing lung condition like asthma, COPD, are the people who are at higher risk group to develop pneumonia frequently. And this is the group where we have to actually concentrate more and kind of raise the occasion, and any change in their day-to-day symptoms should be addressed.
Sir, what about pediatric population?
Yeah, coming to pediatrics, as sir said, that pneumonia is more common at extremes of age. So in children, more so less than 5 years, and again, much more so less than 2 years, the prevalence of the pneumonia is extremely higher. These children are more vulnerable merely because they lack immunity, number one. Other risk factors when we look in pediatric group, lack of breastfeeding. If the mother who can feed the baby for first 6 months exclusively and subsequently for next 1 year along with complementary feeding is a most effective tool to prevent severe pneumonias in children. Apart from that, common other factors like overcrowding, malnutrition in the child, and lack of effective available immunizations against these diseases are the common risk factors for these pneumonias. When we talk about pneumonias and childhood, what we see is that the viral pneumonias are very common in childhood compared to probably adults, and next comes the bacterial pneumonias. So when we talk about young infants, small children, this particular month of November and December, we are seeing a lot of children with a condition called bronchiolitis. They start with cold, then progresses to cough, then the cough worsens on day 3 of the illness, and the fever is just very mild. However, day 3, there is a difficulty in feeding, there is difficulty in breathing. When you look at the child has difficulty in breathing, he's fast breathing, not able to feed. And when we assess these children, they have got what is we call viral lower respiratory infection or viral pneumonia, and specifically it affects predominantly small breathing tubes, and we call that as bronchiolitis. Though you may wonder whether bronchiolitis, pneumonia are different, they are slightly different in terms of what part of the lung is affected, but they present similarly. Second thing is what we talk about pneumonia. Those pneumonias are either lobar pneumonia, which means a part of the lung is completely solidified, or bronchopneumonia, which means there is a patchy involvement of all the lungs. However, the presentation is same: high fever, they have got chills, rigors, which means they are shaking, they look very unwell, they have got toxicity, that is, they are not alert, they are sleepy, and when you look closely, they have got a fast breathing. And we assess by listening carefully to their chest, and by stethoscope we'll be able to either identify some special sounds in pneumonia called bronchial breath sounds, crepitations, and these helps to assess. World Health Organization has come forward to differentiate various severity. If the child has got fever, fast breathing, it is pneumonia, and if the oxygen level is low, severe pneumonia. That's a very good classification at a community level to identify and grade the severity of the pneumonia. To essentially say there are 2 types of pneumonia. Unfortunately, both viral pneumonias and bacterial pneumonias are both serious in nature. I will allude to that about management in future, but these are broadly the types and the risk factors for pneumonia.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, what about in adults? Is there any difference?
Yeah, actually, the presentation not so different from the pediatric population. However, the majority of the lung infections in adults can be treated on outpatient consultations, and the presentation is not that dramatic. People have a high fever and people have a cough with or without sputum production. However, there are a small percentage of the people will have a severe manifestation like very high fever, where the oxygen can drop, and the people the hemodynamics, what we call BP, and the blood pressure and the pulse rate can go haywire. Those are the people where they need hospitalization, and also they need the oxygen support and IV medications. But majority of the infections, if they're caught early on, they can be treated on an outpatient clinic. To add to this thing, there are other kinds of pneumonia in adults. I mean, it can happen in pediatric population as well. So where we say fungal pneumonia, especially these things happen in people who are having a pre-existing immune issues, immune suppression. People who are on steroids, people who are on immunosuppressant medication for other medical conditions, people who have cancers, people who are taking chemotherapy, their immunity is quite low. They are vulnerable to develop fungal infection, which generally doesn't cause infections in an immunocompetent person. And in India, any kind of chest infection, we have to keep the possibility of tuberculosis in mind. Any pneumonia can be tuberculosis, wherein the presentation can be more subtle and long drawn. People have a mild fever, people have loss of appetite, over the period of time they lose weight, and again, so this can also be a sign of tuberculosis. So, and they are also classified under lung infection or pneumonia. We need to keep them in our mind when you are diagnosing tuberculosis in adults.
Is there any difference in presentation with competent and immunocompromised patients?
Yes, so it's a very good question. Actually, most of the symptoms of pneumonia, like high fever, cough, it's actually the sign of our body fighting the infection. So the one of the manifestation of immune reaction or the body trying to fight is the fever. When the people who are already immunosuppressed and they develop infection, this important sign is not there, and that can mislead us and the diagnosis can be delayed or we miss the diagnosis. So when you see and you come across a patient who has a immunity issues or immunosuppressed person, we need to keep your index of suspicion higher, and you need to probably do more investigation. Do not completely rely or will not, your decision should not be dependent only on the clinical acumen or your patient's symptoms or the clinical examination. These are the set of patients where we need to be aggressive in getting the investigation done and diagnosis. When I say investigations, I'm talking about taking a chest X-ray, doing a chest X-ray, or if the things are not clear in chest X-ray, we should go for a CT scan of the chest. Also, some blood investigation, sputum examination has to be done to get the diagnosis right.
And when do we admit a patient, sir? Like,
As I told you, majority of the lung infections can be managed on a OPD basis if they're caught early on and present to you early on. But there are patients, as I told you, a small set of people where they have disproportionate symptoms. Then oxygen goes down, where they need oxygen therapy, and the pneumonia is presented with a set of complications, which we will discuss further. They would need the IV antibiotics or ventilator support. These are the set of patients where we need them hospitalized, and under constant observation they need to be treated.
and is the same with
On the
pediatric?
similar grounds, yes, the indications for admission to the hospital is if the child, especially so small infant, is not able to feed well. So we admit these children and assess. If the mother says, sir, child is not even feeding 50% of what the child used to feed, it becomes automatically an indication to admit. Number one. Number two, we do put a simple probe where we check the saturation levels and we call it as oximetry. And if those oximetry studies shows that normally saturations when we check in the finger or toes is more than 96%. When it drops to 92 or below, it again becomes second automatic indication to admit. And third is the clinical assessment. For example, if the child has got significant breathing difficulty, when you look at the baby is very sleepy, lethargic, has a noisy breathing, is working very hard, trying to find, is gasping for the breath, they become automatically indication. Some children come in extremes, that is in the very severe form, they're not able to breathe well, they might need an emergency treatment, what we call intubation, ventilation, but that is extremes. So majority, if there is feeding difficulty, breathing difficulty, or oxygen saturation or increased work of breathing, these are commonly there. Whether it belongs to viral pneumonia, bacterial pneumonia, as sir said, fungal, any severe forms of pneumonia needs admission and treatment in a hospital setting.
So, what are the common treatment you advise?
If you take 20 to 30 patients that are admitted today, we have got almost in this particular season 50% of them are viral pneumonias. And viral pneumonias are treated differently compared to the bacterial pneumonia. Viral pneumonias have got difficulty in breathing, they have air hunger, they have low oxygen. We treat them with what we call as oxygen therapy. We put a prongs in the nose and connect to the oxygen. It is humidified. That humidified oxygen helps the baby to breathe effectively. So one form of treatment is oxygen. Second, in small infants who are more vulnerable for these pneumonias, so small children who are not able to feed, we put a nasogastric tube, and through that we will be able to provide baby the breast milk, expressed breast milk, so that baby is not hungry or not becoming weak. So we feed them. And if we feel that it is viral pneumonia, we manage only with paracetamol and oxygen. However, those in which the clinical assessment and X-ray shows that it is likely bacterial pneumonias, then we end up doing blood test. If the blood test shows that the markers of infection, that is total white cell count, C-reactive protein, blood culture confirming there is a bacteria, we treat this group of children with IV antibiotic. Simple antibiotic like penicillin have treated millions of patients with pneumonia, and the commonest bacteria that even today that causes pneumonia is pneumococci. and simple penicillin is more effective. However, pneumococcus, staphylococcus, haemophilus, these are the common 3 bacteria which responds very nicely to coamoxicillin. So we treat that for 2 to 4 days with intravenous antibiotic, and once the child's condition improves, his breathing becomes better, his oxygen requirement comes down, and he appears more clinically active, alert, we change those medications to oral medication and give for next 5 to 7 days. So we give 7 to 10 days of antibiotics to children who have bacterial pneumonia, and supportive treatment to those who have probably viral pneumonia.
What any difference in adult patients, sir, in these?
So largely the same. The organisms which infect the adults are similar to what Dr. Anil Sapare suggested. They are viral, bacterial, and some special group fungal infections. The only difference which I want to point out is in adults, the adults handle the viral infections much better than the pediatric age group, where 95% of the viral infections are self-limiting. We don't need any treatment. What you need is the symptomatic treatment like paracetamol or hydration, which is eminently given at home. So whenever we are sure that what we're treating is viral infections, we reassure them and send them home, and we'll explain them about the warning signals where they have to report back to the hospital. When it's come to bacterial infection, again, as Dr. Anil Sapare said, the common infection is pneumococci, which is eminently treatable by simple antibiotic like amoxicillin, which can be given as an oral antibiotic. However, the patient has risk factors like coexisting diseases like cardiac disease or COPD or asthma, where because of this infection, their underlying disease can get worsened, where the symptoms may be because of that rather than the pneumonia, which needs a support, where we hospitalize and treat accordingly.
What about complications, sir?
Yeah, pneumonia, the complications are not very common. So, but however, people can get worsened, need hospitalization. And as far as the complications are concerned, one, directly because of the pneumonia. The second one is because of the underlying disease getting worsened because of the pneumonia. The common complication which we see because of pneumonia is infection overwhelming the lungs and going into the bloodstream, what we call septicemia. And it can have a remote infections like brain abscess. We can have distant organs involved because of the infection getting into the blood. That's what we call septicemia. Second complication which we commonly see is the infection when we have in the lungs, which is overwhelmed and gets into a pleural cavity, which is the lining outside the lungs, what we call empyema or the pus collection within the pleural cavity. These are the two important complications which needs interventions like removing the pus or IV antibiotics and close observation in the hospital.
What are the symptoms you see in such patients to confirm that or think that the patient has gone into that complications?
The first thing is non-response. So if the patient is not responding to the initial line of treatment, the patient's fever is not subsided in first 48 to 72 hours, and we repeat the set of blood investigation which we would have done on the day of admission, they are not coming down and they are worsening, and the patient's oxygen requirement is going high, or which was not there in the earlier and starts becoming oxygen dependent, or oxygen requirement increases. These are all a pointer towards where the initial treatment is not effective, and we need to kind of escalate the treatment, look for complications, get more investigation like blood culture, CT scan, and depending upon the symptoms, we need to go for other investigations and hike up the antibiotics. This kind of a situation is not very common. Say, we would say in 5 to 10% of the pneumonia in our day-to-day practice needs hospitalization. Otherwise, majority of the patients, if they're caught early on, can be managed on the OPD basis or the outpatient basis.
Sir, what about preventive measures in pneumonia?
Preventive measures can be categorized into two broad categories. One, to build up the better general immunity and nutrition. So breastfeed every baby who is born. That's very important, and we use a word called exclusive breastfeeding, which means for first 6 months of life, do not give anything other than breast milk. That is a golden rule in pediatrics that has to be strictly followed by good complementary feed so that nutritional status of the child is better. So breastfeeding followed by nutritional complementary feed is there. Second most important thing is vaccination. Now with the great effort of all the scientists over last century, we have most effective vaccines available for all these common diseases which we just mentioned, myself and Dr. Ranganath. Pneumococcus has killed millions and millions of life in the last 50 years. And first came effective antibiotic, and now has come a very effective vaccine. They are called pneumococcal vaccine. Lots of companies coming up with any vaccine is good enough. So giving vaccination in the early infancy is a very important preventive measures. So second thing is there is a vaccine for Haemophilus influenza, which is part and parcel of our universal immunization program, what we call UIP, which is done by Government of India. Every child should be given those vaccines. Thirdly, as Sir said, tuberculosis still remains rampant. So we give a vaccine called BCG at birth. It does prevent against serious tubercular infections in early infancy, especially one that of a brain, other forms of serious miliary tuberculosis. So vaccination. Third thing is we should improve the overall general status of our country, that is pollution, overridingly becoming more common cause of a lot of this problem, overcrowding, especially children who are living in crowded places are more vulnerable for this. We have to improve our general, per capita income, the standard of living. These things will definitely reduce exposure to, the current government has taken initiative to reduce the use of coal and other things in the cooking. All these things will reduce the air pollution, reduce in general the incidence of respiratory infection and pneumonia in particular. So nutrition, vaccination and general measures are the key factors in preventing pneumonia.
So what about in adults?
By and large, the same principles apply here also. So as said, when we were discussing the risk factors, I forgot to mention one thing. 1/3 of the pneumonia cases are directly ascribed to our air pollution. So air pollution leading to pneumonia development and the subsequent morbidity. So air pollution is one thing which we all have to think about, governments have to think about, and the as a society at large, we all have to take care of our quality of air, and that's a significant risk factor not only for pneumonia, many other health conditions. In adults, which is rampant, is the smoking is thing. I mean, we have enough evidence to say that smoking increases the chances of pneumonia and makes the patient vulnerable to pneumonia. Not only the passive smoking, even the not only active smoking,
Yes.
even the passive smoking, the bystander also are at risk of if a head of the family has a habit of smoking at home, and he will put his wife and children at risk of developing pneumonias. And in fact, what we call third head smoking, even after a long time after smoking, the smoke which is settled on the utensils, on the table or the furnitures, can also kind of act as a source of tobacco, which can lead to health issues. So smoking is one thing which definitely has to be addressed, which has a direct impact on reducing the pneumonia incidence. And the general personal hygiene, again, a simple thing what we all have practiced during our COVID prevention thing: hand wash and cough etiquette, disposing our respiratory secretions carefully, and closing our mouth with appropriate mask, or when you're coughing, cover your mouth and nose while coughing. These are the things which prevent the spread of infections. And pneumonia is a contagious organisms which causes the pneumonia is actually contagious. In a person who has got a viral infection, he has the ability to spread to others. So I think the personal cough etiquette is important. Nutrition cannot be overemphasized. I think people undernutrition or malnutrition in India, our country, is a big problem, and that also predisposes to development of pneumonia. Overall nutrition of the patient or person should be taken care of. And I think the vaccination, as Sir mentioned, even in adults, anybody can take flu vaccine. However, we concentrate on the high risk groups like people who have asthma or pre-existing lung diseases and pneumococcal infections. Over 65, everybody should take it, or less than 65 years of age, people who have the high risk groups, what we mentioned, should be advised for vaccinations.
What are the common vaccines available, sir?
So there are two common organisms which kind of covers 90% of the causes of pneumonia, that is influenza vaccine and the pneumococcal vaccines. If you look at the causes of pneumonia, these two things would cover around 80 to 90% of the causes of a pneumonia. And vaccinating this, when one thing what we have to understand is this vaccination may not completely prevent the infections, but severity is reduced, the complications are reduced, mortality is reduced. That's why the vaccination is very useful, and we can overall the mortality related to pneumonia can be reduced with vaccinations.
Thank you, sir. Anything to add on, sir?
Yeah, and the flu vaccine, which Dr. Ranganath sir said, we have been using that even in pediatric practice, commencing from 6 months of age. Our universal immunization schedule has already included Haemophilus influenza. Pneumococcal vaccines has been rolled over from last month into the entire country. That's a big step by CGI and the government of India to provide these vaccines for all across the people. It is going to reduce the burden of pneumonia significantly. And flu vaccine also is going to reduce the likelihood of influenza-related respiratory illnesses, both upper respiratory, lower respiratory, otitis media, pneumonias, bronchiolitis. As mentioned, Hib vaccine also is this thing. So all these vaccinations are going to be play a significant role in reduction of the diseases related to these bacteria.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This was a wonderful talk. It's helpful for you people also. Thanks for listening.